Well, happy spring break, Management 1010 Interdisciplinary Leadership students. I'm here on the home page of our course in Pause, and obviously what is high on your priority list right now is test number 1, and I have a video for you there that goes over the instructions. If you're saying to yourself right now, what about this test number 1? Well, first of all, I sent you an email that included a link to this video as well as a couple points. And as you know, you can go to the content link in our course. You're doing this, several times a week, I'm sure, if not once a day. And remember the 2 different links, but I'm not going to go into detail on this. Because I've already covered that in one of the previous videos. But if you're not aware of what the test dates are and what am I supposed to know about, our first test, you need to get out there looking at that. Excuse me. Now, what I want to talk about is under our assessment tool and Dropbox. We are steadily moving through our writing assignments where the purpose of the writing assignment, and this is a significant point of feedback to you, is for you to take the reading. And when I say the reading, I want to give you a couple words here that are significant, okay? When we talk about the reading, there are some things that you're picking up from the various articles that you read. One of them is definitions. One of them is concepts. One of them is frameworks for leadership. Think about those 3 words. Definition means that I need to understand what it is that someone wants me to do. Okay? The concept is starting to get into how do I apply that definition? How do I do it, right? The framework is that there's no one definition that makes leadership work. There's no one concept, and if I apply that definition in this one way, then everything is great for all times. It's not like that. It is part of the definitions and the concepts are part of a greater framework where you say, if I put these things together in a very specific way, and if I include all the concepts within this framework, then I will have this outcome. That's kind of the science of leadership. It is very tempting, and one of the problems that I saw that I want to give you feedback on is that it's very tempting to reach into your gut and to use what you believe to be the definition. But the truth of the matter is that within our textbook, the definitions that you're reading, the concepts that you're learning, are part of a framework, and the words of the definition matter. Okay, so our next assignment, I'm going to talk more about that, but as we look ahead here, our next assignment, I'm going to go into don't just click these documents here, you're going to miss all the instructions. You need to go into writing assignment number 4. Now, what are you going to do if you experience any problem with the Apollo 13 movie? Not all of our movies are online. They are definitely not, so don't count on that. You have a schedule, and you should look ahead to plan how you're going to watch those movies. But this one is, and if you run into trouble, what do I tell you here? You need to contact the library. I even provide the phone number for you. Now, if you're not familiar with this, and you really should be by this time, you can also go under class list, and you can email Ask the Librarian by simply putting a check next to that box and clicking on email. And I think I told you that at the very start of the semester that link was not working, but because one of your classmates said, hey, I'm trying to do this, and ran into difficulty, we were able to get this working. So now, everything is going well, and you can use that. Okay? So let me go back, because we were under assessments, and specifically we were looking at Dropbox writing assignment number 4. Now, you'll look at these, overview instructions, and then, of course, you'll save this WA4 instructions document so that you can write in it. Remember, folks, to name it with the required file name. Very, very, very important. You hate to lose points over silly things like that. Okay? So read those instructions carefully. All right. let me I prepared just a couple bullet points here. Let's just walk through this. Your next movie is Apollo 13. It's a great movie. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I really do. And let's talk about what you learned from Remember the Titans and the feedback that I can give you from writing assignment number 3 that'll help you improve on the Apollo 13 assignment. Again, if you have never seen Apollo 13, you're going to love it. True story. True story. Okay, here's useful tip number 1. Answer all parts of the question. Okay, all the parts. Clear communication is your responsibility, and I put in parentheses always, and I tell you why I did that. Not to poke you. It's not like that. It's because clear communication is always each person's responsibility. Everybody in the conversation needs to go the extra mile to make sure that they're being heard and understood clearly. You never want to just throw a short phrase out there, because you're going to be amazed as you continue in your not just academic career, but in your business career, in your family relationships, friend relationships, that miscommunication, it occurs all the time, even when we are making an effort to be clear. So you can imagine if we're not making that effort, how much more likely that is to be a problem. Let me give you an idea. Here's our instructions. Okay, once again, big, pointer here. Here's the library contact information. Here's the link that you can click on. Here's that file name. You may want to make sure that you're following those instructions, right? And you're going to go down here. Now, I have highlighted this in yellow just on my screen because it's written there, and I need you to look at this and read all these things carefully, okay? Let me start out. The movie demonstrates the concepts we are studying in Chapter 6. Okay, so first of all, you have to demonstrate that you're learning things from Chapter 6. I'm not asking you to reach into your gut and tell me what you thought, whether or not you ever even looked at the textbook. That's not learning. You've got to apply what you're learning, okay? So in the article, The Power of Goals by Stephen Covey. Let me tell you something about Stephen Covey. You should Google him, because Stephen Covey is one of the big names in leadership and time management, all kinds of great advice. He has some great videos out on YouTube that are short and very focused on a point. I really encourage you to Google him. All kinds of cool things, and it's great that he's included in our textbook. Okay, the authors state that habits help us to achieve our goals, and that by achieving our goals, we are successful. Okay, so for example, you have a goal of graduating with your college degree. Well, what habits have you formed that support that goal? Maybe you study every morning before you get out the door to go to work, or before you drop the kids off at school. Maybe you study every afternoon in 30 minutes before you know you have to meet the kids at the bus stop, right? Whatever it is, you have formed habits. I know you have, otherwise, you would not be successful at all. And you are successful people. So what habits are helping you? What habits are maybe not helping you, right? So that's what we're looking at. Moreover, Stephen Covey is very well known for the 7 habits of highly successful people. So you're reading that in the article in our textbook. Now here's what I'm talking about clear communication. First of all, pick 2 of the 7 habits, and what am I asking you to do? Very similar to the last assignment. Name the habit and type the description of the habit. Here's what I saw in the previous assignment. People would just put in this box something like this. Well, so what are you communicating to me? You're communicating to me that it is not your responsibility, but that it's my responsibility to know that stuff, go look it up and figure it out, right? I'm the teacher, clearly I should know, so you tell me go look it up, right? Well, as the student, you're responsible for saying, hey, I know what number 3 is, what, concept number 3 or 10 as it was in the previous movie, or what is Stephen Covey's number 3 habit. I mean, tell me it's this number, name the habit, be very, very specific. Maybe the habit is begin with the end in mind. Great YouTube video that Stephen Covey has on that. You should really play it. It's excellent. Begin with the end in mind. What does that mean? Tell me the description. Okay, now I'm asking you, why do you believe that the habit is more important? So make sure that you're answering that. Don't skip it. Now I'm going to come down here to part B, because in past semesters I can tell you that a lot of students simply skip to this part. I don't know why, because here it is, it's sitting there and it's waiting for you to respond. Now once again, I do not have these highlights on your copy. I'm doing this as talking points to you in this video. A huge problem with writing assignment number 3 was answering this question. How? How are you seeing this habit exhibited in the movie? Specifically, right? And I asked you in the previous assignment, tell me this. Who, what, when, where? You've already told me why. You addressed that up here. Why, when did it happen? But I actually said to you, and most specifically, tell me how. Tell me how you saw this exhibited in a clip of the movie. I gave you this great cautionary note. Do not recap the movie. And yet on paper after paper you told me the whole story of the movie and concluded with a sentence that should have been the opening sentence of your response. And right as with that what was your concluding sentence, which should have been the opening sentence, I was like, yes, they're on point, and you were done. And you never addressed the question, how did that happen? How did that concept get exhibited? If we're using begin with the end in mind, how did you see that in the movie demonstrated? Specifically, tell me how. Okay? Now, in this case, in Apollo 13, you're looking at your page, and I'm going to explain how the mission leader, Gene Kranz, used these habits to lead his team. This is a leadership class. You're studying Chapter 6. I am looking for how did he use this goal-setting measure to lead his team in developing a solution. Now, sometimes a student, for example, in the previous assignment would say one of the concepts that we studied within the framework was to use humor. That humor is a very important part of leadership. And students would give me examples and say, that was really funny. It made me laugh. It was funny. And I'm sure it would, right? I could tell you a joke. Okay, I'm going to tell you a knock-knock joke. Are you ready? You start. You start. Did you just say knock-knock? Okay, so I'm going to say, who's there? I gotcha. I gotcha, didn't I? Okay, here's the point. That was funny. Was it leadership? Well, you may say, it depends. Well, then you need to explain how. How did you see that knock-knock joke used to demonstrate leadership? Because I'm going to use that one as an example. But as we studied, remember the Titans, and we looked at our concepts of leadership, the 10 that we went through, humor was very specifically defined as being used to break tension and to build camaraderie, to build the teamness. So if you simply talked about something that was kind of ha-ha funny, then what you're communicating to me is that you really didn't even look at that definition. Or if you did, you're not getting it. You're reaching into your gut and you're saying, use humor. Well, that's funny. I'm going to go around telling all my people knock-knock jokes every day and then they'll love me. Right? No, that's not how it works. So we've got to understand that the definitions work within the concepts, work within the frameworks, and we have to give evidence as a student. You have to kind of convey to me that you are understanding it, you're seeing that demonstrated within the movie. Folks, that's hugely important. I hate to rattle on that, but that's hugely important. If I could pick the number one thing people are losing points for, that's it. Okay, so tell me, for example, how he used one of these concepts in the movie to lead his team or in developing a solution. This is not vague. This is a very specific thing. Now, if you're saying, well, I don't see where another one of the concepts you'll read about is to be proactive. Maybe you personally don't see that exhibited. I can't imagine, but maybe you don't see that exhibited. Well, I only asked you to list 2 out of the 7 that are available. So pick one that you feel passionately about, right? You should be watching the movie going, oh yeah, that's exactly where he sharpened the saw. That's exactly where he used synergy. That's exactly where he was thinking with a win-win attitude, right? And as you read Chapter 6, all these things are going to take on meaning. If you're going to your gut, and if you're saying, well, I know what win-win means, you may not be pulling out the parts of the definition that are essential to demonstrating your knowledge of the concept of the framework at large, okay? All right, so let's go back. Enough on that. I want you to do well. That's why I'm telling you these things. Let me go to number 2 here. Avoid recapping the movie. Well, I've already talked about that, so I won't spend any more time on that. But, folks, let me just say this. I have a real itchy red pen finger, and what I mean by that is I get really tempted to start marking up your paper really badly when I see that you have flipped to the summary page in our textbook that describes the movie and that you've copied it. It's very clear that it's not your language that you're plagiarizing. It's very clear also when you've gone out to IDMB and copied the recap online. Yes, I use Google, and I just can't say how strongly that it is obvious that it is not your language. It's not your writing. It's not your thoughts. You're giving me filler. And I have looked at those things that you're finding on the web. I've read your book probably, I don't know, 10 times, okay? So it's screaming to me where you're getting this information from. And as a result, it's insulting. Don't do it. I've asked you not to do it. I don't understand why you still feel that you're going to get some kind of points for doing it. So you've been warned. Folks who are not going to listen to the video, you're going to lose some points on that big time, because now I've warned you repeatedly and done it in the video as well as the writing. Okay. Useful tip number 3. I have really spent some time on this. Now let me underscore it. Use the textbook definition, not your gut reaction to it. Again, the example that I gave you was in terms of using humor, which was one of your Chapter 5 concepts. So let me just draw upon our current assignment where you're using the power of goals and you're reconciling that with our Apollo 13 movie. And it says here to think win-win, the attitude of seeking mutual success with others. That's part of the definition. Guess what I'm going to look for if you choose that as one of your concepts? I'm going to look for you to describe how you saw in the movie that Gene Kranz, for example, was thinking from the vantage point of mutual success for others. It says it is based on the idea of an abundance mentality in which everyone stands to gain from the abundance of rewards that are a consequence of attaining mutual goals. See, that may not be what you thought of as a win-win, but it is what Stephen Covey thinks of as a win-win, and that's who we're studying, and it's his concept along with Merrill and Merrill also, the co-authors of this article. And so we need to understand how they see this as a tenet of leadership. Okay? All right, useful tip number 4. This is a multi-parter. Let's jump into it. Now that you know the definition, address the scene that provided the example. Again, this is where we tend to get lost. Another major kind of downfall, because this is where folks either just say, oh, well, you know, it happened on the football field, and remember the Titans? Yeah, it happened. Okay, nope, not good enough. You are going to have to really tell me that when you were watching that movie, you screamed, aha, there goes one of the concepts of the framework of leadership that I'm studying. You know, you're going to convince me of that point, right? How are you going to do that? Well, it's going to be more than one sentence. It does not have to be 75 sentences. It's just a paragraph. But that being said, you can do it. Who were the people that we're talking about? Are you talking about the engineers in Apollo 13? Are you talking about the astronauts? Who are we talking about? Are you talking about communications between one of the astronauts specifically and Gene? Who are we talking about that are in the, that's in the scene, that's exhibiting what you defined as being in your textbook? What specific action demonstrated the thing you're attempting to describe? The point here, folks, be specific. When did it happen? Now, I had some folks say at the beginning of the movie, at the end of the movie, for example, in Remember the Titans. Well, you know, depending on what additional details you added, that could have been helpful, because obviously there's an evolution that occurs, a transition that occurs throughout the movie as the characters evolve. But when you talk about when, talk about that in terms of the influence on the character. Was it when the character was still stuck in his old ways? Was it after he had accepted somebody else's leadership, after he had accepted a new mentality? You know, when in terms of that person's progress as part of the team or in the leadership position. Where did it happen? Are we on the spaceship? Are we in mission control? Are we inside of the pretend capsule on the ground? If these things don't make sense to you, they will as you watch the movie. And folks, you know this is the most important concept, and this was the one that students struggled the most with. How did you see it? What tangible actions did you observe that are also part of your definition or framework? Let me pick another one here. Synergize, the habit of creative cooperation or teamwork. Okay, so in the movie Apollo 13, if you like this word synergize, and that's the concept that was meaningful to you, then how did you see it demonstrated in the movie? How did you see creative cooperation? How did you see teamwork? Don't just simply tell me that they were teamed and they worked together, the team worked together, thus synergy. No, that's not going to earn you any points, okay? Especially now that I've cautioned you on that. So talk to me very specifically. How did you see this demonstrated in the movie? All right, so let me make sure I've talked about all the instructions. There was one last thing I wanted to point out. Again, highlighted on my page, not highlighted on yours. This is a common tripping point, so we'll see who watches the video because they will probably miss this point, okay? It says write one paragraph, but how many paragraphs are you going to end up with total? 2, because in your instructions you are required to pick 2 habits. And for each habit that you identified in the previous question, write one paragraph where you give a specific example. So folks, don't miss that, okay? Go ahead and write 2 paragraphs, 1 per habit. Again, I'm giving you those cautionary notes. How, most especially, how is this done? Now again, I don't have this arrow on there. I do not have this highlight, so you're going to have to point this out. I'm going to give you a tip for success. I learned this from one of my students many years ago when I first started teaching. She had been in the military for a while, and she was one of my best students, and she always, just always scored like 100 on absolutely everything. So I got with her and I said, you know, what is your key to success? And I saw all these marks all over her page, and so I was kind of saying, what are you doing there on your paper? Because it seemed very methodical. And she said, oh, apparently this was something she had learned as part of her military training. She said, I go through, and for her personally, she would maybe underline something like this for each habit. She would draw a square around action words like write. I have to write a paragraph. She would go through, and she had all these different marks, and then she would go back through and put a check mark when she had completed each thing. So she was reading with kind of this active, engaging process where she was consciously looking for tasks and action words, and so she would put a box or a star or a circle next to things so that she knew, hey, this is something I have got to make sure that I do. You know, after you finish writing, sometimes we say, gosh, I put so much work into that writing, I'm done with it and I don't want to look at it. And you know, we're all like that, and folks, we really are, because it's tough. It's tough for us to review our own work. It's tough for us to get feedback from others that tell us that we're anything less than perfect. I mean, I know I'm perfect. I don't know about y'all, right? Are y'all perfect? We are, aren't we? I mean, we wouldn't have written it incorrectly. We wouldn't have answered the question wrong, right? So it is tough. I'm teasing you because it is tough. But here's how you improve. After you do that writing, you might have to get up, you might have to go have a snack, you might have to go walk, you might have to do some jumping jacks in place, whatever it is. You know, if you're in the library, they probably look at you funny when you do that, but nevertheless, okay? And then you say, okay, let me just make sure that I have answered that question, that I've done this for each habit. Okay, those are some keys to success. All right, so I hope you are getting a lot out of these assignments. You know, I promised you this is a great class, but I also said to you what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So if you're skipping straight to this one page and you're going to try to grab 3 words off of it without putting anything else into it, then that's what you're going to get out of it. If you take some time, the articles in here are powerful. You've got some reading assignments like Man's Search for Meaning by Frankl. I think you'll enjoy that. You know, I read these things with a highlighter, and I have little notes next to my book. You know, The Power of Goals. If you delve deeper into the Covey, Merrill, and Merrill article, you know, you'll read things like there's no key. The key to motivation is motivate. What does that mean? That seems a little circular, right? Well, maybe you need to dig through here and really find things out. You know, what does it mean how to set and achieve principle-based goals? What does it mean when we need to keep a perhaps list? How do we set weekly goals? How are we driven by conscience? You know, we're morally trying to do something that we feel is right. Well, this article talks about all those things. So important. Let me just flip through here. This is a rich chapter. All these chapters are really rich. Even as you look forward into the next chapter, Unit 7, in terms of making a decision, you know, that may sound obvious when we think about going to our gut. Well, what is it to make a decision? Well, I just say yes or I just say no. And this is Chapter 7. But you know, it gets harder at every stage of life. It becomes very difficult. I'm not talking about financial decisions. I'm saying, do you take job A or do you take job B? Once you're on, you know, working in job A, do you go the management route? Do you develop your technical skills? Do you choose to work at the operation that's you know, out in this location or this other location? Do you just do it on location, or do you do it based on greater things? There are methods of helping you to make the best decision that's right for you. And sometimes it's a lot harder than you would think. So how do you get all this richness out of the course? You read the textbook and you immerse yourself into it, okay? So I know you're working hard on those quizzes. I see a lot of good quizzes that are above 70%, and that's good. You want to keep that up. And I hope that the tips that I've provided to you in regards to feedback from Apollo 13 and how to incorporate that feedback to do well on feedback on Remember the Titans, how to incorporate that feedback to do well on Apollo 13. I hope that that's helpful. And I hope you are enjoying your spring break as it comes to a conclusion. Don't forget that test number 1 needs to be high on your priority list. If you've not already taken it, you need to schedule that time for yourself. And we'll be talking more as we continue throughout the semester. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.